Hello everybody, welcome to comics class. My name is Brandon Pallas and I'm here to teach you everything I know about comics. Starting with, right now, Simplified Anatomy, continuing on with our exploration of the legs. Last time we did most of the thigh, the front of the thigh, the quadriceps, the gluteus maximus and medius and all that. So most of the upper leg, we left the back of the upper leg alone. So we're going to cover that today along with the lower leg. So we'll do that in just a minute. But first, let's go ahead and get up into a little bit of warm-ups. We'll keep this short today. I don't have anything real specific I want to do. But let's just start with instead of the C curves and S curves and stuff, let's just do like some squiggles like this. And let's just go all the way across the page. And like you can stretch them out or you can make them real tight. And I'm going to go back the other direction. Let's see, make sure I've got the streams up. Okay, cool. Yeah, just do these and make them wider, get narrower. They don't necessarily have to double back and create these like bowling pin kind of shapes. You can kind of just go up and down. For me, they always kind of tend to make these bowling pin shapes. All right, and now I'm going to do some going upward. And downward. This is like a real S curve. It's just like a bunch of S's stacked on top of each other. So I'll just do a little more of those. And these ones, I'm just going to like go all over the place. I'm not going to do a straight line. I'm going to kind of curl around. Try not to let any of them touch, but just get a variety of angles, and directions, sizes. Get real small, get real big. All right, that ought to do for that. Now we'll do another similar thing, but instead of doing these loopy S-curvy sort of things, I want to do this sort of zigzagging sort of thing. We can start, let me start over. We can start just kind of doing the same curve like this. This is I guess these are C curves that kind of curve back toward where we're coming from. Do the same thing this way. And then let's do the ones that kind of curve forward. I find when doing these, sometimes I'll get like a little loop on it. I try to avoid that, but that also can be something that you do intentionally. All of this is just to develop your hand, to just kind of have the ability to conjure up these different kinds of lines on command. Later on, when we get into some more specific exploration of line as our like topic, we'll see how this can be really useful to just like be able to execute, to have a good sense of what kind of line you need in a given place, and to just like execute that line. Okay, let's see. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do these same kind of C curves, but I'm going to loop back and forth, and I'm going to change the like density and the height, and just kind of create a kind of pleasing randomness to it, where it's curving back, it's curving forward, it's going up, it's going down. And I think I've mentioned before, this is a lot of the way I would handle, if I'm drawing grass or something like that, or when you're putting like folds in on somebody's clothes, you might have these little loopy kind of connected C curves and stuff. So these are really valuable lines to practice. And it's good to also practice getting a lot of variation in a series of lines, to be able to just kind of move forward while injecting a lot of variety in the shape and sort of density and all of that, without really having to think consciously about it. When you do this a lot, you just get good at it, and then you can just kind of make it happen without really having to think about it. So that's probably good. Now let's do this little egg exercise. Doesn't have to be an egg exactly. In fact, oops, one of these I'll just do like a straight sphere. Wrap some rubber bands around it to give it some form that we can hold on to. And you can use as many of those as you need to feel like you can really see the form. And then just go ahead and start writing some letters. I'm going to go ahead and go through the whole alphabet here. Shouldn't take too long. And just try to make it wrap over that surface. Use those lines, those rubber bands, so to speak, as a guide. Kind of make stuff even wrap around the edge, at the edges. You guys don't have to get all the way through the alphabet right now, but this is a good exercise just for training your ability to create complex systems of line on top of a form. Sometimes you're going to have to put a lot of lines or split it up in some way, like over a rounded form of some kind. Just go ahead and get this last Z in here, and that'll be it for that. But the reason I wanted to do this with these legs is there are some areas in the legs where we have some long lines like wrapping around the form, like that sartorius muscle, for instance, that is kind of the border on the inside of the leg between the muscles of the front of the thigh and of the like inner thigh. So this is good practice for that. But yeah, that should be it for the warm-ups, and we'll go ahead and move into the legs part 2. So as usual, I'm going to start out by just recapping the mannequin real quick. Make a line. Halfway, we'll put the line of the hips. This is going to be the greater trochanter of the thigh right there. That's one of our very important landmarks. Go 2/3 of the way up from there. Put the line of the shoulders. The head will fill 2/3 of that space above. Line of the waist is going to be right in the middle between the hips and shoulders. We're not going to, well, you know what, I'll deal with the arms here. Elbow at the waist. Wrist at the hip line. Hand hangs down to about mid-thigh. halfway down here, that's where we're going to find the knees. Feet down there. Pretty simple. We've done this a bunch of times by now, but it's always good to kind of keep the big picture in mind. So now I'll start talking about today's, well, real quick, I'm going to recap the what we did last time, the parts of the thigh that we dealt with last time. So over here, we've got the bony landmark of the iliac spine. So from here, we're going to have the, let's see, the tensor fasciae latae, the TFL, reaches down from there, and it goes kind of just in front of the little teardrop-shaped muscle that goes just in front of the greater trochanter there. We've got the gluteus medius coming off of the side of the hip bone, off of that iliac crest, and reaching down right to the greater trochanter. On the inside, also coming from the top of that iliac spine, we've got this long S-curve of the sartorius muscle, which we don't necessarily see, but a lot of the times, but it creates the border of the quadriceps. Coming down from between the sartorius and the TFL, we've got the rectus femoris, the front muscle of the quadriceps, which reaches down the front, and then this ligament tendon kind of reaches to the kneecap. You know what? This is I need a smaller pen or pencil for this. So let's see. All right. So this rectus femoris reaches down here to the kneecap. We've got, coming from the greater trochanter, we've got the vastus lateralis, the probably the biggest muscle of the leg. I mean, it's technically part of the quadriceps. They're all the same muscle, but they separate into these very distinct heads, so it looks like a separate muscle. That covers the whole side of the leg. The IT band is on there. There's going to be a leg that reaches down to the outside of the knee. On the inside, we've got the vastus medialis, which comes down and kind of rests right on top of the kneecap there. It actually sags over a little bit. And we'll cover the back as well in a minute. But that's most of the front of the thigh that we covered this last time. And I didn't really talk about this, but this is going to be important this time, is these adductors on the inside of the leg. They kind of just come from the crotch there and come down and fill in this space on the other side of the sartorius. So there's the front of the leg. Let me, I'll just go ahead and duplicate this, and we'll deal with this as if this is the back of the leg now, or the back of the body. So we've got this sacrum here, and from the inside of this sacrum, we're going to have the gluteus medius, which is going to come down a little, or the gluteus maximus rather, is going to come down a little below the level of the line of the greater trochanter, the hip line there, and it's going to kind of wrap toward the outside, and it connects on the outside of the where the IT band is. We've got the gluteus medius coming down. So we would have the iliac crest kind of coming up like this, and the gluteus medius is going to come down here to the greater trochanter. And now, so this is what we covered last time, all of this. And now I'll get a different color so we can keep it separate. And now we're going to be getting into some new stuff. So the hamstrings, so these are the adductors. I showed you this a minute ago. These come from, excuse me, these come from, like I said, from kind of the middle here, from the crotch, and kind of reach down, and they attach all along the inside of the femur there. And those fill up, we see that in the front. We see them a little bit in the back, but what's going to fill up most of that space is attached to the bottoms of the pelvis here. We have the hamstrings coming down to the knee area, and the hamstrings are not going to. It's technically like two muscles. It's actually four muscles because there's kind of the biceps femoris, which is analogous to the biceps in the arm. And then there's these two underlying muscles called the semitendinosus and the semimembranosus. But those aren't super important to us. Mainly, we need to think about there's going to be this one big bulge here on the back of the leg, and then it's going to kind of split to either side of the knee in the back. Technically, it's two separate muscles, but we almost never see a separation there. We just see one big bulge that seems to kind of split at the bottom. So that's going to be on the back of the leg. We're going to see the vastus lateralis out on the side. And then, let's see, let me change this so it looks like we have some heels there. And just 1 second. I forgot to close my door. Okay. So moving down to the lower leg, I'll pick a separate color for this again. We've got the, so this is going to be the tibia. This is the large bone of the lower leg. There's also the fibula, a small bone on the side there. These are kind of analogous to the radius and the ulna of the arm. The tibia is analogous to the ulna, the large bone that includes the elbow, and then the fibula is analogous to the radius, the smaller bone that kind of rotates around that larger bone. So on top of this, we have in the back, there's basically two muscles. There's the gastrocnemius, which is probably the most well-known muscle of the calf. I keep getting the wrong layer here. Which is going to be these kind of two teardrop shapes. And you'll see this, you'll see it as these kind of two teardrop shapes on people that are very like muscular and lean. But that doesn't necessarily show. A lot of times it just looks like one kind of bulge. But yeah, it's kind of two muscles like that this turns to tendon down here and attaches. It runs down this. It creates this this Achilles tendon, and then runs down, connects to the heel. And this is like most of what we need to know about the lower leg and the back. But there's also another muscle called the soleus that underlies the gastrocnemius. And it mostly creates a little bit of a bulge on the sides at the bottom half of this shin. So we'll deal with, I'll show you that on the anatomy pictures in a minute. Important thing to point out is the way this gastrocnemius, it runs up in between, like behind the knee. There's usually a little, like there's a tendinous area strapped down. So we'll see like a line there kind of, but it runs up in between. And then the hamstrings go on the outside. So there's this sort of a pattern where the calf comes in between and the hamstrings kind of come to the outside of the back of the knee. Now, as for the front of the lower leg, so we're going to see the, let's see, I'll go ahead and put in, this is going to be the interior border of the tibia. And this is a big bony landmark. You should all be able to, if you feel your shin right now, everybody should feel like a flat bony area kind of on the front inside of the shin. This is analogous to the ulnar furrow on the arm. Just like the ulna has this this area all along here where no muscle grows, it's just bone up against the skin. The shin also has the same thing, and it's much more prominent actually because there's just this wide flat area of like almost like an inch or more where there's no muscle. And then we're going to have some muscle on the front here that runs down, some muscle on the side. These are analogous to the extensors of the arm, and I'm not going to go in depth on them because usually they don't show as a lot of separate muscles. It's kind of a mass. Mostly there's the one on the front and then there's the ones on the sides. And you will see a little bit of a border like right here, but most of the time it's kind of one mass. So then we've got this flat bone area, and then on the other side we see the calf, the gastrocnemius, and maybe a little bit of the soleus sticking out back there. We also might see the gastrocnemius sticking out there. Down here, the tibia has this wide, like, classic bone shape, where the outside of the ankle is going to be low and the inside of the ankle is going to be high. And then there's the foot down there. I'm not really going to deal with the foot right now. We'll do a week on that later on. Yeah, so that's the basic structure of the lower leg. So let me go ahead and pull up my reference here. And we'll take a look at some of these anatomy pictures. Okay, so here we can see the these are the hamstrings. I'm actually not a really big fan of this picture in particular. I feel like these should be kind of more obviously coming from here, but not that big a deal. We can see how it's two muscles that sort of branch and go on either side of the knee. We can also see some of the adductors right there. So hamstrings splitting to either side of the knee. We can see how the gluteus wraps around it. And then here we can see the gastrocnemius coming up in the middle. You can see here that it kind of comes up like this. It's not like a straight like arrow, but it doesn't matter because really we don't see any of this stuff inside the knee, inside the back of the knee for the most part. So gastrocnemius here, you can see it's kind of got that teardrop shape, and then it turns to tendon down here, creates that Achilles tendon. You can see the soleus underneath there a little bit. This one is a pretty obvious display of how the soleus underlies the gastrocnemius. So like I said, it's mostly covered, but it kind of peeks out. Kind of peeks out underneath in the lower portion there. And again, here you can see gastrocnemius overlying and soleus underlying. Okay, so let's see. Here's another back of the leg here. You can see here's the origin. Whoops. Get on the right layer. Okay. Here's the origin of the hamstrings. Just stretching down. Like I said before, all of this is going to appear to mostly be one mass on almost everybody. Maybe on like super ripped bodybuilders, we'll see separation there, but for the most part, it's one mass that just kind of branches out and stretches to the either side of the knee. You can see there's all kinds of tendinous stuff in here. Vastus lateralis there. Okay, let's see. Here we got that gastrocnemius coming up on the inside of the knee. Like I said, there's a bunch of tendon stuff in there. So we don't really see those insertions or origins. I guess they're origins because I think whatever's higher up typically is called the origin. Same deal here. All right, and then this is the front of the leg. We got the kneecap. The kneecap, there's a tendon that comes down and attaches to a little protuberance on the front of the tibia. So it gets kind of this kind of a shape. Then we've got, here's that big wide area of bone with just nothing over it, right up against the skin. This is the tibialis anterior. All of these are, the extensors basically that lift the foot up. This is analogous to like putting your hand back, rather than curling it in. This is like bringing your foot up. And like I said, that there's a bunch of muscles that just all kind of come off of the outside of the knee here and off the, like all on the outside to the outside of the kneecap and whatnot. And they all just kind of flare out and come down to the top of the foot. There's some, it's a really interesting thing you see in the body where there will be these, like around the wrists and around the joints mostly, you get these sheaths of tendon that are literally just like a strap, like that just strap down these tendons so that when the foot flexes, if this is the leg and this is the foot, when the foot flexes up, the tendons don't just like bridge up between their origin and their insertion. There's actually this this little band that keeps them strapped down, which I think is really interesting. I don't know if it matters much for us as artists, but it's just a really interesting thing about the way the anatomy works. So anyway, as for all of these extensors, you can mostly treat this as one mass, although you will sometimes see some separation between that front muscle and these side ones. So just keep that in mind that you can kind of put a little line there. On the inside, we see the, I think right here we're seeing the soleus and the gastrocnemius behind it from this perspective. I'm not 100% sure that that's the soleus there, but I think it is. Okay, so that is the anatomy stuff, and let's just go ahead and look at the models now. So here we see a good example of that hamstring coming down to the inside of the knee. There's the outside one. And it all kind of like, this is not an especially lean model or anything or muscular, so it all kind of just starts to blend into a undifferentiated mass up here. But notice how that, I mean, this is not just the hamstring, this is also the sartorius and even the vastus medialis all kind of coming together on the side there. But it creates this big bulge. And this big kind of like tendril that wraps around. The one on the outside is not as thick and meaty as the one on the inside. Here again we can see very kind of thick, meaty leg kind of reaching off of that those hamstrings. There's the outside, and then we can see the gastrocnemius here reaching up in between those. And then there's this little, this is basically just where your knee folds, right? But there's almost always a little line there. Same thing here, gastrocnemius coming up between the hamstrings. And you can kind of see two separate like bulges here. That's the gastrocnemius and that's the soleus. Here, that's the gastrocnemius, that's the soleus. All right, let's see this guy. So we've got the kneecap here, We've got a really nice view of that tendon reaching down to that protuberance on the front of the tibia. Here we can even kind of see the flatness of the top of the tibia there. Hamstrings in the back kind of connecting down here. We've got, there's that tibialis anterior. We got all these muscles on the side here. All those extensors, gastrocnemius there, soleus there. We got that ankle bone popping out on the side. Let's see. Here, here's the whole flat shin area where the tibia is just flat against the skin. We know, we don't really see it, but we know the soleus is in here, the gastrocnemius is in here. And as the gastrocnemius reaches down toward the heel, it creates this big, thick, like Achilles tendon there. Let's see. Alrighty. The outer side of the calf bulges higher than the inside of the calf, like basically always. It's going to be like this on the outside with that bony landmark of the tibia there, and it's going to be like this on the inside. So just keep that in mind. Here's that bony area. We've got the calf muscle popping up on the other side. Right there, and also right here, you can see the head of the fibula. And there's a lot of muscles that kind of run off of that. It's all this like mass of tendon and connective tissues up there that all of this stuff kind of comes out of. But sometimes you will see a little pop right there of the head of the tibia and the muscles all kind of running down off it. In here we see, okay, a little bit of review, the vastus medialis. We see the adductors right here, which are kind of running toward the femur there. We can see the back of or we can see like a little bit of the hamstring kind of wrapping around there. Kneecap, tendon. Right here you can see an obvious, right there, an obvious separation between gastrocnemius and soleus underneath it. Here's this bony flat area. And then on the other side of that is just all the extensors. We've got the inside ankle bone, the condyle, I think it's called. This one, the one on the inside, typically does not protrude as much, and it's a little bit higher up than the outside one. Let's see, I'm sure we have some examples. I'll get to that. Okay, this guy. Here's a little bit of review from last week, because this is an excellent example of how the gluteus maximus, despite wrapping around like this, the mass of it is all over here, and all of this stuff is just kind of flat, right? So when we look at this guy here, who's like butt muscle is flexing pretty hard, it looks like it only goes right here, right? We don't even see this stuff that wraps around, but we know it's there. But yeah, this is just a really good example of how that gluteus maximus muscle works. And then we have the gluteus medius coming down this way. Let's see, I guess the crest of the iliac crest is up there. Gluteus medius comes down on the outside there. So just a little review. I thought that was a cool detail. I didn't find anything as good last time to demonstrate that. But as for the leg here, we've got the hamstring splitting to go on either side of the knee. You can see the vastus lateralis right there in front of the hamstring. All of this stuff coming down to the side of the knee. There's just this, let's see, do we have any good examples here? This is probably the best one. There's just this whole mass of connective tissue all around the knee on every side. Okay, so hamstrings there, kneecap in front, tendon reaching down to that protuberance. Here we can see some of these extensor muscles coming out of here, going down the sort of front side. We've got the gastrocnemius here, reaching up in between those little legs of the hamstring that come down. Soleus underneath. Got that condyle there. Got that Achilles tendon there. You can also see really nicely. You can see the Achilles tendon there. And then this is another one where you can kind of see the separation between the gastrocnemius and the soleus. So gastrocnemius, soleus, right there. Let's see. Here's a good one where you can see the adductors separated from the, basically the inner thigh area separated from the front of the thigh area by the sartorius. And you don't see any of the sartorius in here really, but right up here, we can see a little bit of evidence of it. Let's see. All right, here's some bodybuilder dudes here. You can see the separation of the vastus medialis. You can even see a little bit the sartorius coming down right there. You know, that wraps around and attaches inside the thigh or inside the knee. We've got the adductors, and behind it behind them the hamstrings. Adductors there. Adductors there. Let's see. Here we can really see, I believe this is the sartorius standing out right there. Where it connects down here. Here's a good example of how that bulge of the gastrocnemius is lower on the inside. And then the inside ankle bone is higher. The outside, we can't even really see it there, but it's going to be down there. Let's see. Here's another one you can kind of see. And if anybody has any questions, as always, feel free to speak up. Let's see. Okay. Here's one where we can see the sartorius and then the adductors in there, like really separated. A little bit of TFL right there. Let's see. Okay, here we see very strongly this tendon of the why am I blanking on the word? The hamstrings, reaching to the outside of the knee. Everything kind of like connects all up on the outside of that knee there. Vastus lateralis here, hamstrings in the back. You can see a nice little TFL there too. Gastrocnemius reaching up between the hamstrings. We can see a little separation right there. You don't see it right down the belly of the muscle often, but up at the top where those legs start to diverge, we can see a little bit of that. And then this is another one where you can really see a difference between the gastrocnemius and the soleus underneath. Extensors here, condyle, Achilles tendon. Okay, and same one. This model's good. She's got a lot of detail in this area for us. Up here, you can see the head of the fibula popping out right there, and a lot of these extensor muscles kind of branching off of it. Kneecap, tendon, little protuberance there. You can see this bulge of the hamstring, gastrocnemius, soleus underneath. Okay. Let's see what else we got. All right, this guy we can see a nice bulge of the adductors, and then it's kind of blending right into the hamstring there. This model is pretty lean and muscular, but even so, we still don't see, he's not like bodybuilder lean, but he's pretty lean. We still don't see separation between the hamstrings there. It's exceedingly rare to see that, but hamstrings come down here, gastrocnemius there, hamstrings here, everything kind of meeting up behind that knee there, gastrocnemius, soleus, some of those extensors visible. Here's that outside portion of the, or that outside condyle of the ankle, Achilles tendon there, stretching down from the gastrocnemius to the heel. Let's see. Here we have the hamstring again, reaching down to the side of that knee. We've got this little, there's that little line there where the knee creases. Gastrocnemius. You can see some of there's a little shadow there of the flexors popping out. Kneecap up there. Here you can see the kneecap, and then you can see the little condyle, or not condyle, whatever you call it, the protuberance at the top of the tibia there. To the, whoops, more reference here. All right, this guy here, not especially lean or muscular, but we can still see, like, we don't even really see any separation of the muscle on the side here. But we do see where it starts to diverge and create this hollow behind the knee. So hamstrings kind of coming out here, gastrocnemius, soleus. I'm just going to kind of make this up here. You know, we don't, you do see kind of a cool separation there. But yeah, we don't see a whole lot of muscular detail in this gastrocnemius here. We know the soleus is underneath there. Achilles tendon, outside condyle of the ankle. This bulge, notice this bulge here, this like long, nice S-curve really. But these are the extensor muscles running off of that fibula and off of that side of the knee there. Let's see. Here, okay, this is actually really cool. This guy's flexing his leg, you know, he's pulling his lower leg back. And so we see this bulge. Look at the shadow here. We can see the hamstring bulging up as it flexes to lift that knee. Or not lift the knee, but to lift that lower leg. And then we can kind of see the tendons on either side there. We've also got, so the hamstrings are kind of like right up the back of the leg, and then the stuff that's going on in here, this is the adductors in this area. So cool, like it's cool to see the hamstring in action, doing its job of flexing the leg backward, much like the You know, the hamstrings are analogous to the biceps on the upper arm. It's actually called the biceps femoris. Um, as in, you know, the biceps of the arm are the biceps brachii, which basically means two-headed muscle of the arm. This is the two-headed muscle of the femur. We can see a little bit of that vastus lateralis on the side. And then, you know, gastrocnemius there. This is all super foreshortened, so it's kind of hard to make stuff out, but we can see the extensors there. We know the soleus is under there somewhere. Let's see. This same model. This is a good example of how, you know, I've talked before about how the knee is around here. It's like a very blocky shape. You know, there's not a lot of like bloopiness of like the muscle and fat and stuff. It tends to be very almost like a tapered block with like this kneecap kind of sticking off the front of it. So let's see here. We can see there's going to be some of that vastus lateralis here, and then the hamstring in the back coming down behind. Here, extensors, and then I talked about how there's that front muscle, the tibialis anterior, and then we also see the extensors that come down behind it, and there's often there might be a cut there, like a separation. So we're seeing that here. Gastrocnemius in the back, soleus. And if you're drawing like in a less than super realistic way, you can kind of get away without really doing any separation between the gastrocnemius and the soleus. But it's good to know that it's there. And if you want, you know, you can create that little extra flare there. It's interesting. Some people actually have like people can have different levels of development between the gastrocnemius and the soleus. And you'll see some people with a really big gastrocnemius and like a small soleus. And then you'll see other people where the soleus is this massive bulge on its own. It makes their lower leg look really thick. I'm not really sure. I imagine just different kinds of activity. You know, I'm sure there are certain sports that work the soleus more. I think it's more of a slow twitch endurance muscle. So I think maybe like endurance type runners develop a big soleus. I'm not really sure about that. Okay, so here we see the hamstring coming down on the inside of the knee. There's that vastus medialis. We've got the in here is all of the adductors, gastrocnemius, reaching up in between those two prongs of the hamstrings, soleus underneath, Achilles tendon. Here's that inside condyle of the ankle. Like I said before, it's up a little higher, and it does not protrude as much. Kneecap. This is cool. You can really see that kind of double shape of like the kneecap, and then that little protuberance there. Let's see. Here's a really, look at this. Look at this area here. Look at those prongs of the hamstring, and how the gastrocnemius inserts right up in between it. Like, this is almost as clearly as we're ever going to see that. So hamstring, you can also see the vastus lateralis here, how the hamstring is behind it. Gastrocnemius here. We can also see some separation right there between the gastrocnemius and the soleus underneath it. extensors here. Outer condyle, lateral condyle, I believe it's called. Achilles tendon there. And then all this same stuff again over here. Let's see. We probably don't need to go through all of these, so let me just look around and see what looks like there's some particularly valuable stuff. Here we can see that hamstring again. Actually, this one's pretty cool because we can see the adductors in here, and we can see how the hamstrings are kind of a separate mass. So that stretches out over there. We've got the gastrocnemius coming up in between. Here we can see the fibula, the head of the fibula, and how those extensors all reach off of it. Here's that bony area of the tibia and the gastrocnemius. Because her leg is really folded up, it's being kind of mashed forward, so it's creating this mass here. Let's see. Okay, here's a cool view of the knee. Kneecap. There's kind of a hollow here because this is all just, it's just tendon and stuff, and like right on top of bone. The muscles are all up in here and down here, and there's all these thick, strong tendons that all attach around the knee. So vastus lateralis, adductors in here. We would have the sartorius coming around somewhere here. We have the hamstrings in the back coming down like this, attaching somewhere around here. The gastrocnemius is going to go up between them. Soleus filling in that space somewhat. We can see a little bit of a bulge of the extensors on the front of the leg. Extensors here. You can see a little bit of detail of the separate muscles there. Gastrocnemius and soleus behind. You can see the hamstring there and how the gastrocnemius inserts behind it, or between. Let's see. Okay, here is another good one where we can really see that protuberance of the tibia and the whole kneecap and the way it kind of reaches down there. We can see right there is that bony landmark of the tibia. We can see the calf muscle being pushed out to the inside there. Again, lower than the outside, always. And we can see this separation right here that I talked about between those kind of front muscles, side. Yeah. Again, high, low. And then as far as the ankle, low, high. So it's like high, and then this comes low, and then this is low, and then this comes high. Hope that makes sense. Okay, we're getting close to the end here. I'll just do a few more. I guess there are only a few more left. Here's a good one where we can really see that crease where the knee actually folds. We've got the hamstring muscle coming this way. Again, seeing no real definition in it, but we start to see these prongs of the kind of tendon as it separates. Goes on either side of the gastrocnemius, reaching up in there. A little bit of a bulge of the extensor muscles. And then here we see, as it's really folded up, we see like just a straight up crease there and like another little additional fold. But here's an interesting point. See, she's resting on her leg here, right? She's not actually curling the hamstring muscle to pull this leg up. Like we looked at this one here, and this guy is curling his leg up with the strength of his hamstrings. Whereas here, she's resting it, and she's actually like activating her the muscles at the front of the thigh probably to like stay upright. So we don't see this flexing, and we don't see these tendons of the hamstring really standing out because it's not like activating right now. So that's kind of an interesting detail. We do see a little of that bulge though. All right. Here we can see gastrocnemius, soleus, some of these. When the leg is like compressed like this, we start to see the calf bulge out against the upper leg. Right there is the head of the fibula. We can see these extensors kind of stretching off of it. Here's a tendon. We see this in a lot. I haven't pointed it out yet, I don't think, but in a lot of these pictures, I don't know, maybe not, but you can often see a narrow little tendon or ligament that reaches down to the outside ankle bone there. Here's another one where we can see a stark division between the gastrocnemius and the soleus. A little bit of a... I feel like there's a temptation to do the front of the shin kind of flat or even curving inward, like concave a little bit, but there's almost always a little bit of a bulge of the extensors there. Let's see. Another one. I think this model is a dancer, so it makes sense. She's got some pretty well-developed calf muscles. Gastrocnemius here, soleus underneath. This might be the best we've seen of the difference between the gastrocnemius and the soleus, because look at that. Look at all this right here. Okay, hamstring coming on the inside there. Kneecap, little protuberance there. A little bit of bulge of the extensors there. Over here, we don't really see any detail, but we can kind of tell what's there. Here's that tendon I was just talking about that runs down to the outside of the ankle. And I guess we may as well finish this off because we just got a few more. Okay, hamstrings. Here we can kind of see some separation between the adductors. Up here, there's the vastus medialis. Then in here, we can see the hamstrings. Because this guy's legs are kind of folded up, we see the bulge of the gastrocnemius being kind of pressed forward by the back of the leg. We can actually see some nice... Okay, so this in here, this is all just flat bone with no muscle over it. This is that bony landmark of the tibia. And then we actually see we see kind of a cut right there where the extensors are bulging out over that flat area of bone. And then here again, we see some separation between the hamstrings and the adductors. Hamstrings, gastrocnemius, soleus. All right, we've done this a bunch by now. I'll just go ahead and let me see. This is kind of crazy looking. Look at that foot all folded under. Here we can see vastus lateralis, and then behind it you can see the hamstring. Gastrocnemius, soleus, the bony area, the bulge of the gastrocnemius to the inside. Here we can see pretty well how the gastrocnemius turns into the Achilles tendon right there. And then again, we've got the outside calf, or not calf, the outside ankle bone being low and the inside one being high. Let's see. Here we can see the hamstring coming to the outside of the knee, gastrocnemius looping up inside it, extensors. Here's that bony area, gastrocnemius, soleus. I feel like this area, I feel like maybe, I don't want to say it doesn't need as much study as the rest, because I'm sure every area needs study, but I feel like we're just doing the same stuff over and over here at this point. Gastrocnemius bulging out because the leg is curled. Here's that head of the fibula, bunch of extensor muscles extending off of it. You can see that tendon that reaches down toward the bone, the ankle bone. Kneecap up here and the little bony protuberance, the tendon. Let's see. Here's that crease. Here's that hamstring prong reaching down. Here's the outside one. Again, no real definition in here, but you know, we start to, it's good to look at the ones where it's kind of subtle on the model as well, rather than like really jumping out like on like athletes and stuff. So we can see the prongs of the hamstring there. We can see how the calf muscle, the gastrocnemius, kind of comes up in between, but it all kinds of gets lost here. We're not seeing a lot of obvious definition, but that's good to study too. Soleus, Achilles tendon coming down off the gastrocnemius. We got that ankle there. And then there's that crease that you almost always get. I'm not sure if that's because of tendon. I think there are all kinds of like tendons and ligaments in there. I think that's probably part of it, but it may also just come from folding your legs all your life. So let's see. Yeah, looks like that is all of the reference that I brought. So if anyone has any questions, anything that you feel like you didn't, any questions that weren't answered or anything that you want to see a little more of, let me know. Otherwise, we will call it a class. Homework today, as usual, just give me 10 legs, and you know, put in all of these details that we did. It's mostly the lower legs, but you know, the hamstrings as well. If you want to include the stuff that we did last week, that's great. You don't necessarily need to be super detailed with all of the muscles of the hip and front of the thigh and everything. But again, if you want to, it's good. It's always good to get more practice seeing how all of this stuff fits together. I think at the end of this series, I'll probably do a session that's just putting the whole body together. Because like everything overlaps. It's really hard to separate the body into discrete areas because there's always something that reaches over to the next thing. And it's this like whole that's all tied together. But anyway, yeah, just give me 10 legs. I'll put in the homework channel like what specific details I want to see. Yeah, so I guess that'll be it. Thank you guys very much for coming, and I'll see you all next week. I should let you know that week after next, we'll be taking a break. I'm going to be on vacation, but I will be here next week, and we will probably do a basic overview of the head, since we are pretty much through the body now. We have the head, hands, and feet left. So, yeah, see you guys all next week. Thanks for coming.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Brandon.